Hey everyone, speed into the Brutally Delicious podcast with Bruce and Riina.
This is Christopher Harold Wells from the Neverlutionaries, and you are listening to the Brutally Delicious podcast. Oh, yeah.
So thanks for joining us. Again, that's my partner, Riina.
Thank you for having me. Thank you very much.
For those not familiar with the Neverlutionaries, can you just give us your 2-sentence boardroom pitch?
It's essentially a band with rock at its core that has different variants of textures. I can go to really trippy and kind of atmospheric to just kind of drop D, going for it, chugging away at it. I've always been a real fan of a big fan of the riff. You know, I grew up on Kiss and Zeppelin, so I earned it. I got it properly. And it's pretty much like life. You know, some songs are going to be kind of laid back. Some songs are going to be really direct. Some songs are going to be kind of, you know, like, what in the hell is that? You know, kind of like the Bastille. But so that's essentially what it is, you know. And the texture doesn't matter, you know, because my voice is the thing that kind of ties it all together. So it's you know, but I love the rock, man. Big rock. For
awesome.
Sure.
What kind of experience or training do you bring to the music? I mean, are you professionally trained, or you just grew up playing in your garage like me, or how'd that work out?
A little bit of everything. My parents realized I was a ham at quite an early age, so they got me into doing community plays and musicals, and I actually enjoyed waking up at the crack of ass and doing musicals just because I love the thing of entertaining people. Like, right. There's something about putting a smile on someone's face, you know, and just kind of providing an escape. So I really got into it at that point. And then in my teens, I spent my formative years in Raleigh and grew up it was a really awesome scene with like COC heading the way and a lot of Confessor, all these really killer bands. Right. And I was in a band called Peasants of the Apocalypse. And we kind of tied into that whole kind of thing. But that's, it was neat too, because Raleigh at the time had some really good acts. And they were all different. There was Cry of Love, and they were like a Southern rock thing. And there was a DAG, and they were a funk thing. And then there was COC, and ironically, they were all produced by John Custer.
Oh, really?
Who did all, you know, he's done actually all the COC records, I believe. From Blind was his first one.
Gotcha.
So,
and I'm going to let Riina jump here in a second, but as far as the writing goes, do you do most of the writing yourself, or is it like more?
Essentially, the deal with the Neverlutionaries is kind of like I wrote all of it. And except for there's one song called the L Street Stomp, which is the last song on the album. And that was a collaboration of some writing cats I know in San Francisco at Hive Street, something they kind of had laying around. And I was like, here, put it on. And I just kind of had a crazy walk off the top of my head and came up with some lyrics. But God, I got a little off the question.
No, that's fine.
But yeah, so it's, yeah, I just like to rock, man. Awesome. Pure and simple.
Riina?
Yeah, so I listened to a lot of the stuff that you did, and there's definitely a lot of variety in the songs, like you said, and I think that's really cool. Like, I could definitely hear influences from Tom Waits to Nine Inch Nails to, you know, to Alice in Chains and stuff like that. There's a lot of good stuff there. And I applaud you for your like adventurism in making music.
Thank
and
you.
Also, I want to say, I am stealing "Waking Up at the Crack of Ass." I'm stealing.
You can take that. You can own that as well. I think I could split the copyright on that with you.
I could use the money. I'm a single mom.
Woo, I hear you. My thoughts, good energy and light goes out to you.
Thank you. No, it's like
for getting that though, Riina. That's one of the main things, you know, because there's a safety. Like if you heard like Metallica doing a funk record, it might not be quite the same, because they know where their lane is, and they've been lucky to have such a defined path in musical history.
Right.
And for me, I want to have a legacy of like, I could go over here, go over there, and it still comes around and has that continuity, because a lot of times everything does not translate heavily to acoustic. Like I couldn't imagine like listening to acoustic with Sugar or something.
Right.
It would just sound like string slapping, just all over the place, and there wouldn't be any definition. So they're needed, but for my personal journey, I want to explore. I think it would almost be very painful experience to like, you have to stay right here. For me personally, you have to stay right within these confines and write and create right there. Stay right there, because I'm influenced by so much. I mean, I still like to just ask random people like, who are you listening to? Who are you listening to? Because you never know. Every favorite band I have, somebody turned me on to them, and I didn't discover them just randomly flipping up, down the dial or whatever, or, it was something that someone suggested, oh, you got to hear this, or someone else I knew had a record, like I remember a few days before, I guess around Christmas time, and I was a wee laddie, and a friend of mine put on a Rush record after school. We were sitting around hanging out, having coffee, and I heard the bass line to Free Will, and I just heard the aggression and the power and the way Geddy Lee just kind of like, he yielded that bass like a freaking axe. It wasn't just like he played it, he yielded it. And so all of my bands at first, like Peasants of the Apocalypse, was a 3-piece where I sang bass, I sang and played bass, had a cool drummer, cool guitar player, because that was such a great influence. How, think about an orchestra, how you can have all these sounds and they can bring a oneness to this music, or you can have 3 dudes or 3 girls that just rock the hell out. And there's something about their energy that creates something palpable that makes it a force. The French call it je ne sais quoi. It's an it. You can't sit there and say, oh, he has Quindar number 9, which making him jam his ass off.
It's just your finger on it.
It's one of these beautiful things of life, just having that power to translate emotion into something that I can let you listen to, or I can let Riina listen to, and you can hear it, and you can actually see, well, wow, I guess he was at that place. For me, that's really magical. It's really magical. It's very profound, because so many people walk through life not having a way to express, and we all feel stuff. We all do. Even the ones that say, I don't feel anything, they're feeling it worse than the ones that can admit it. Right. So my thing is, let it out. And if you let it out, it can be your savior. Like music for me, I've been through addictions in my past. And the thing that saved me was, at the end of the day, I would always make sure I got good sleep. And I always made sure I didn't miss a session or a rehearsal. Yep. And I never let anything get the best of me, because I realized, even at a young age, and at an age when most people are kind of falling by the wayside, that this is some deep stuff, and I feel sacred.
Yeah, I completely understand, and I think there's I'm also a singer, and I have a band called Silentium, and that's actually how I ended up on this podcast. Is I did one episode to promo my album,
and then
boom,
there you go.
I know, right? Crazy. But anyway, I talked about it, I think, in my episode, and then in all the interviews that I did, how I find it's sort of like our duty even to use that channel and use that skill to portray those emotions and offer that channel of sharing and expression when you don't have maybe the resources yourself as a person to sort of bring that out, so you can then co-share the emotion through the music. And I appreciate you talking about your problems with addiction. My problem is depression. So like, this is something that I can then share and try to alleviate somebody else's pain by then putting those experiences into words and into notes and into beautiful melodies and so on. So
it's a beautiful, it's a calling. It's like, I feel like everyone gets to walk up to that sword, with, stuck in the stone, but only a few can pull it out, and I feel like I was lucky that, because I've never had to go to, and I think when artists, especially, you can't be a pure real artist unless you're kind of emotional and a little bit too much at times.
Right.
And so we're all a little bit askew in our own special way. I have a friend who's like, y'all got a little special sauce going, you creative people. I'm like, you're darn right. Just depends on how levels are spicy. But it's an honorable, beautiful thing, because you never know, you could sing a song one day to someone and like, hey, check this out. And they could be in the mood where they want to check out. And you might mention a word in this song that, like, or a phrase that brings this person back to a point. I've actually had a couple of people say that they listened to a couple of songs of mine and it made them kind of hang in there. And that hit me so hard, and it wasn't like, hey, that was cool. It was like, damn,
they connected with
and that's the beauty of it. That's why it's like it's a calling. Like, I don't know about I know, Bruce, you played music, right?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a hack, but yeah, I've played in and out of bands when I was a kid. No longer, but
up in New York, right?
New York, right? Long Island, yes, sir.
I do my research as well. But so we can all understand and we can all concur. We've all had those periods in our lives where we're just having a crappy day, and you either hear a song or you hear a riff in your head. And even just for the past year, when I finished half the record and I was coming back home to hang out, then it was like,
yeah,
I was set to fly off to Paris, do a lot of pre-press and a few shows over there to turn Europe onto the Neverlutionaries first. And I sat there for a few weeks and I looked at CNN and just went, oh, and I was frozen spiritually. I couldn't write, and I tried to, but everything I was coming up with was corny as hell. Like that going through the motion stuff. Like, yeah, I wrote something. Yeah, it sounds like Mary had a little ham, but you wrote it. But my thing is, I was able to pull myself during one of the most difficult times in our history, as people in our, within our century are going to go through. This will go down in the books.
Oh, yeah.
And being able not only to make it through, but to come out of it feeling better and stronger and to have clarity. And, I'm just glad that, my family and friends are okay, and knock on wood, no one was a fatality. I had a couple people close that had it. But I just feel excited that I survived this and I'm not losing my mind or haven't lost it. And music is a place where I can go, and it's like my savior.
Oh, man, I think if it wasn't for music and the music community, the tight-knit music community, I don't know where I would be, because there are times that's the only thing. I know Rob Flynn from Machine Head always says he's got music in his veins, and that's the best way to put it. That's the only thing that gets me through sometimes.
Oh yeah, it's beautiful. It's beautiful. It's like I literally have music in my blood on both sides of my family.
And it doesn't even matter what genre, right? I mean, it could be Lamb of God, like you said, or I could put on, I don't know, Winona Judd or something. It doesn't matter.
I love it all. Like, I love, like, my playlist has Patsy Cline, who I adore. Always, there's just something in her voice. There's a resonance that, like, it just kind of tickles my soul a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
That's I know that sounds kind of weird. Sorry about the like, but but it's one of these things that, like, it's moving and it's deep and like Kind of Blue by Miles Davis. Having a weird day or slightly hungover and just listening to that on a Sunday morning, it's magical. It takes things away. It provides perspective and escape. And And then, the brutality of like, I'm a fan of Down. I love how they're crunchy. I think Jimmy Bower was in Richmond for a while, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah. But that's Richmond, New Orleans, a little different there.
Yes.
But they have a lot that they bring to the table. Like I feel lucky to, one of my first gigs in the industry was being Pepper's guitar tech.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
When they were on Columbia, I think it was either Deliverance or Wise Blood. But, I learned a lot about being professional from supposedly one of the craziest guys in the business, man. But that dude's smart as a whip.
I've interviewed him a few times, and he's
smart
really
as
nice
a whip, and he keeps it. He's a Taurus, so keep it real.
Yeah.
And if you don't want the truth, don't ask him.
Yep. Very nice guy, though.
Just to let you know. But I feel stoked to like grew up with all those guys. Like Reed was one of my dear friends, and he actually, the day we started tracking this record was the last day I saw him.
Really?
It was like Christmas Day.
Wow.
And it's cool because, where I recorded at Hive Street, it's in a rather questionable neighborhood. So I was like, man, I would jump out here and give you a hug, but let's just thumbs up each other.
Is that near Haight-Ashbury?
It is in the Tenderloin.
So
it
that's
is
like the Dead City, right? That's like Grateful Dead territory?
Oh, yeah. And actually, Hyde Street is where I recorded this record, is where the Dead used to sit, in Hyde Street Studio C.
Oh, nice.
And they did Working Man's Dead there, and Satriani did Surfing with the Alien, and then downstairs, I mean, everybody from Digital Underground to Green Day to Dead Kennedys, and just being a part of that group. And I've actually produced a few sessions out of that. I'm technically a producer at the studio, which is honorable in itself. Mm-hmm. But just to be connected in such, you can feel it when you walk in that place. It's like literally hundreds of millions of records, something in that energy, in that funky neighborhood, because it's not someplace you want to take your kids and go get ice cream. You got to step over some syringes and stuff like that, on the way to the ice cream store. But there's a beauty in that place, because nowadays with recording, anyone can, any Tom, Dick, or Harry can get a recording thing and set it up and get really decent recordings.
Sure.
So I'm hoping there's always a need for those brick and mortar classic studios, if nothing else. Atmosphere, there's the way this piano sounds in this room, the way they have it positioned in this corner, and it's been sitting there, and then look over there, there's Sinatra's, he burned a piano back in the day or something, and you're not going to get that hanging out at home, so there's a need for both of it. And I actually had half of it I kind of did in the barn, and the other half I did in a world famous studio. It's like complete Gemini stuff. I'm keeping it real.
Nice. Riina?
Way too little albums recorded in barns these days, so kudos for that too. That's really interesting. One thing I have to say is that you are wearing the coolest hat
I was thinking the same thing.
In my entire life, and suspect we'll never see a cooler hat as long as I live.
And Riina will tell you,
I actually gotta, the next time we talk, I have lots of cool hats. I don't know. It's like, I've always had a thing for hats.
That's cool. Not everybody can pull off hats, but you can definitely pull that off. And it's extremely, is it leather?
Yes, it is.
That's nice. I have a thing for hats too, and I post them all the time and send them, and Riina's always making fun of me with them. So maybe I can't pull it off as slick as you can.
It's the hair.
It's the hair, and I've got a melon head for some reason. It's just huge.
I do too. I wear a like extra large hat, and even the hat right now. If you listen really closely, you can hear it go.
You say that, but it's really funny because I know this is totally off topic, but what the hell? I have a hard time finding hats that actually fit because I have such a big, abnormally large head.
Exactly. Your head is your head is oddly large.
But I like to think it holds all the good looks and the brain. So we'll
I'll get up to the intelligence, yeah, man. I mean, I don't know too many smart people with little tiny heads. Not trying to be funny.
Right, there you go.
But if you got a big head, either be careful.
I was thinking it equates to something else as well. I think there's a saying, right? The bigger your head, the bigger your...
Oh, no. I wasn't even going there. I wouldn't even go near there with a lady. But I was just saying, it's like, some people just have really big heads and they're either really smart or they're really not.
Yeah, I was going to go even darker and say that either you're really smart or you were born prior to, I think, 1978 when they invented the vowel for like, the waterhead syndrome for babies.
We have a vowel?
Yeah, like, because we're going way off.
Down a rabbit hole.
This is what happens on this podcast. But definitely, that was a thing. Like, usually in the 70s, 60s, 70s, if your baby was born with that syndrome where, like, liquid fluids just start to accumulate into the head, it was a death sentence that, the kid would die. But then they invented, I think it was in the late 70s or early 80s, that they invented this valve that they put, like, to the neck that could then, release the fluids and save the life and save the brain. But there's, like, a handful of people that were, like, the first to get that treatment. So what actually happened was the damage was already done, for the most part. That we have some people that only have the brain cortex, isn't that like the outer layer of the brain? Basically empty on the inside. There's only the top layer, but they go on and live normal lives with normal IQs and so on. And this raises a lot of questions of the brain and how it's being used and how, like, incredibly flexible and able to sort of adapt this organ is when it, like, somehow, like, encounters a trauma. Because we know of people who somehow, like, they get, like, head trauma and they, for instance, lose their sight, but then suddenly the hearing gets extremely good because the brain is trying to cope. And
it's like it's rewiring and trying to improvise.
Yeah, compensate. That was the word my stupid Finnish brain was looking for.
My big head remembered that word, and we were good.
Proof.
Anyway, I don't know how we got here, but let's take it back and close out this interview. For those who want to find the Neverlutionaries, can you drop your websites and how they can you?
You can find me on all the social media. Instagram, it's the Neverlutionaries 1, and you can get it on iTunes and all the streaming platforms that you usually go to get your jams for you to get your jams on. You can find it there, and I just invite you to listen to the whole thing, because even though we live in a singles world, I like to get my throwback vibe, and I wanted to create something that someone can listen to from beginning to end, and it takes you on a journey.
I preach that all the time on this show. I'm a big fan of the drop the needle on and wait, whatever it is, 17 and a half minutes.
Yeah, that was the magic of it.
Yep.
And then, like, I remember getting the first album I ever got. My dad, he's so cool. He got me Kiss Rock and Roll Over.
Oh, one of my favorites.
And I remember just listening to it and spinning the record around and listening to it, and I got obsessed with it.
That's got Ladies Room on it, right?
Yes, meet you, greet you in the ladies room. Yep. And I was in the Kiss Army. So literally, I've always loved rock my whole life. My whole entire life. It was always like, soul. I had cousins that were into Hendrix and stuff like that, and Floyd, and they would like, listen to this, little cousin, check this out.
Yeah.
And I was like, They'd probably try to scare the bejesus out of me, but it actually had a positive effect.
The reverse, right?
Yeah, like I love it. I love just the fact of that I can write a song. And Riina, you're in Finland?
Yeah.
And someone in Finland can hear this song that came from here and it ends up out there. That's the most beautiful, magical thing. And so I've already had the best success with the release of this record. No one sells 10 million records anymore. That's unrealistic.
Right.
I just want to put my groove out there and hope people vibe on it, and have like another band like, hey, watch out. You're falling, Bruce.
Oh my God, Bruce, your background.
Bruce, I thought he was having.
Stupid
I
dog.
was like, oh no, oh no.
Backwards.
Are they having an earthquake in Richmond?
No, I got my stupid dog that just knocked over the stand. Sorry.
Oh,
Oh,
oh.
great
I got one at the door here. He's trying to get in.
That's
Hopefully you
funny.
can't hear him whining.
Christopher, thank you for taking the time. That was a great interview. Good
Thank you.
conversation.
Thanks to both of you.
Be
was
well.
nice
Good luck with the record, and I'll talk to you soon online.
Thank you so much.
All right. Be
Take
well, my
care.
friend.
Bye.
Cheers.
Bye.
Cheers.